I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love is the debut album by 21st century alternative rock band My Chemical Romance. I'm super excited to make this MCR video series. This is my favorite band of all time, and it'll be really fun to hopefully talk about with this music with fellow MCR fans. If you'd like to, please drop your own ranking of the album in the comment section. With that said, let's get into it. Starting off at number 10 with This Is the Best Day Ever. This is definitely my least favorite song MCR has ever made. It just doesn't sound very good. The vocals are very rough, which the whole album is to an extent, but that style just doesn't work near as well in this one. The harmonies are also very questionable. I don't see the point in including them when the song would be far better without them. The guitars also feel kinda lazy throughout most of the runtime. I guess it helps that the track is pretty short, because I don't think I could listen to it for much longer. I've recommended MCR to a couple friends, and pretty much all of them have this as their least favorite on the album. Early Sunsets over Monroeville is kind of similar to This Is the Best Day Ever in that the rougher vocals don't fit with the instrumentals the way they're intended. Although I must admit this is noticeably better than Best Day Ever. The first 2 minutes are pretty bad. It sounds like Gerard was high while he recorded this, which he might have been. The second half is definitely better though. At just over 2 minutes in, the song takes on a much darker tone. The instrumentals immediately changing from hopeful to more sinister and somber. The vocals turn from calm to desperate and slurred. The final minute of the runtime especially is very screamy and depressing. It's like the singer in the story is trying his last resort of just begging for someone to notice the corpse in this bed. Early Sunsets doesn't sound very good, but the contrast between the two halves and its progression save it from being in last place. Cubicles is a very weird track. It's not good, but it's not near as bad as the previous two. There's not really anything special about Cubicles. The last minute or so is okay, I guess, but nothing else jumps out at me at all. This song and the previous two on the album are by far the worst set of 3 songs in order from all of MCR's discography. The rougher and less polished sounds, especially the vocals, don't do this song justice. It works with most of the tracks, but not this one or the previous two. Sorry. Skylines and Turnstiles is a huge step up from all of the previous entries. For starters, literally, it was the first song ever written by MCR, taking pretty clear inspiration from 9/11. This broken city sky like butane on my skin is a dead giveaway. I mean, it makes sense. The formation of the band was directly caused by Gerard witnessing the 9/11 attacks firsthand. From here on out, I think the more unpolished vocal style works for the benefit of the music. The instruments feel much more in sync with the vocals, and the guitar in this track is just awesome. Ray Toro is a beast. My favorite part of this song is the final chorus. There are a few very minor differences from the earlier choruses, namely a lower note or two that give this particular chorus a darker tone. Also, an honorable mention to the intro, the drums, and the guitar intro is just iconic, especially considering this was MCR's first song. Skylines and Turnstiles is the point in this video where things take a huge turn for the better. This is on the weaker side of MCR's music, but it's still nothing to scoff at. This one gets a little heavy with the lyrics, so if topics of suicide and addiction make you uncomfortable, you might want to skip ahead to the time on screen. Headfirst for Halos is one of the happiest sounding songs MCR has ever made. The guitar riffs throughout basically the whole thing radiate childlike joy and just overall contentment with life. That is, until you take a closer look at the lyrics. Not even 10 seconds into the vocals comes this absolute bomb. The red ones make me fly and the blue ones help me fall, and I think I'll blow my brains against the ceiling. Imagine playing this in front of an unsuspecting person and then they realize what the lyrics are saying amidst the happy instrumentals. This song discusses themes of drug addiction and suicide, which you can easily tell from the line I just read. Another quote that gets repeated many times during the track is "Think happy thoughts," most notably in the outro where Gerard repeats it over and over again like someone trying to cope with some tragedy, which brings us to the next point. The use of happy sounds along with deranged and depressing lyrics really demonstrate what this character and the concept of the album might be feeling, while high or intoxicated. These substances he abuses seem to be the only thing to comfort him from the harsh realities of life, giving him this deranged happiness that doesn't fix his problems, but just pushes them aside for a moment. Enough about the lyrics though. The guitar work here is immaculate. There's no way doing all those fast riffs for over 3 minutes is easy, and the harmonies of the guitars themselves, especially in the intro and bridge, take a lot of skill. One of MCR's best guitar performances. Headfirst for Halos used to be lower on my list, but I've come to like it more recently. It's one of the most recent additions to my Best of MCR playlist on Spotify, link in the description by the way. Drowning Lessons is also a happier sounding track that has a darker meaning. Not quite to the extent of Headfirst for Halos, but the same idea is still present. The happier instrumentals feel almost like a coping mechanism for this character to deal with the endless pain and loss of his lover. I could be wrong on this, but the lyrics seem to describe a situation where the man, who is singing, is reliving the moment of his lover's death over and over, each time getting his hopes up that she'll come back to him, but she never does. I think the reason he is replaying this moment in his head is that every time he realizes she's gone, he just wants to see her alive again, so he replays her final moments to get those few seconds of hope before being disappointed all over again, and repeat. I know Gerard's vocal style was much rougher on this album, but in this song in particular, it seems like he was very intentional about singing the way that he does. Almost every line sounds like he's on the brink of bursting out tears, which would fit with the concept of the song. The instrumentals are, again, great. I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate the amazing instrumental work on this album and are usually just turned off by the vocal style. The outro is also an amazing part of this track. I know that this isn't a right interpretation, but I like to imagine the guitar in the outro as a substitute for the man finally giving in and crying about the loss of his wife. He realizes he needs to try and move on, and so gives into the emotions at last. Drowning Lessons is a certified classic. Our Lady of Sorrows is one of the most in-your-face, angry, and all-over-the-place pieces of music MCR has ever made. Right out the gate, the intro features heavy and angry guitars and drums. Gerard's already screaming in the first line of the song, and the verses have very obviously this mental breakdown energy to them. I have my own little story to this song, which isn't entirely connected to the concept, but to me it seems like the person singing is trying to get his lover to go with him, because he believes it's for her own good, wherever that is. I support that mostly with lines like, "Please understand that it has to be this way, take my effing hand," and especially at the end with screaming, "Just because my hand's around your throat." The ending seems like the singer's saying, "No more Mr. Nice Guy," and instead of trying to get his lover to progress on her own, he gives up and just forces it entirely. I really love the raw, unadulterated anger in Gerard's vocals. While this much more unrefined vocal style can definitely be a bad thing on songs where it doesn't fit, it is a big positive on ones where it does fit. The angry vocals fit with the overtly dark and dangerous sounding guitar and smashing drums, as well as working perfectly to bring out the character's emotion pertaining to the lyrics. Gerard Way is quite possibly one of the greatest of all time at expressing emotion in his singing. The way he can manipulate his tone to fit literally any scenario is just next level. I also need to mention the bridge, one of my favorite bridges from this album. The guitar takes a more melodic approach than previously, and Gerard keeps screaming to his lover to take his effing hand. Then the second chorus comes in. The vocals in the last chorus feel slightly more urgent than the previous ones, which makes sense chronologically, and the transition into the outro is great. I love the staccato guitar to go with the screaming at the end. Last thing, since the track is so short, the energy was put into just the right points perfectly. Shorter energetic songs tend to be pretty good most of the time, and this is a great example of that. Great song. Some of my friends I've told about MCR love this one, as they should. Demolition Lovers is one of the most simultaneously heartbreaking and hard-rocking songs I've ever heard. Demo Lovers is famous for its emotion-packed vocals and screaming, and for good reason. This track is, in my opinion, Gerard's best performance of expressing emotion in MCR's entire discography. It starts off with over a minute of soft vocals and drums and acoustic guitars. The longer build-up of the verse lets the chorus reach its full potential later. Immediately, Gerard comes in with his desperate screaming, and usually screaming sounds angry, but in this case it feels more like a melancholy cry for help, where you can hear every bit of emotion in his voice. One thing that I don't hear people talk about much are instrumentals in the chorus. They remain relatively soft, but still gel with the vocals perfectly to emphasize the more mournful and depressing nature of the lyrics. There's also a short intermission type section after that, which then leads into a kind of second phase of the chorus. It's only in the second phase that the instrumentals pick up some speed and energy. Gerard's vocals sound increasingly hopeless as this goes on, till everything eventually stops after some screaming. Then the "All We Are Is Bullets, I Mean This" section that we all know and love, and the incredible guitar solo. If you're wearing headphones while listening to the song, you can hear a different guitar in ear, which is really cool. Can we just take a minute to appreciate this guitar solo? I don't know why, but every single note has just the right amount of energy to fit with the song. Like any more or less just wouldn't have worked at all. After that solo is the final pseudo-chorus. I suppose Demolition Lovers doesn't exactly have a chorus in the traditional sense, because the lyrics and vocals are a bit different for each of them, but I think you know what I mean. My favorite part of this track would have to be the outro, though. The rough vocal harmonies fit with the story of the couple and the story dying in a gunfight. The final seconds especially are amazing, with a sudden cutoff after Gerard screaming, "I mean this forever." Demolition Lovers is one of the best executions of storytelling in any piece of music I've ever heard. Every musical element feeds the progression as it pertains to the story, and it's an absolute masterclass in depressing rock music. This song has brought me closer to tears than all but a few other songs ever made, and that is a real feat. Honey, This Mirror Isn't Big Enough for the Two of Us is one of MCR's heaviest songs, if not the heaviest. I'm just going to call it This Mirror for convenience. Similarly to Our Lady of Sorrows, This Mirror sounds very angry pretty much the whole time. The song opens with these metallic guitar riffs that act as the backbone for much of the track. The guitar work in general is probably the best on the album behind Vampires, and even the slightly softer guitar melodies later on surprisingly fit with the screaming vocals. I actually haven't read into the intricacies of the concept in each particular song for the sake of purity of this video, but to me the lyrics describe a situation where this man singing is leading a life of drug addiction and crime for the sake of staying with his lover. He hates the person he's becoming and wants to end the relationship, which is where the "we're not working out" line comes in. He regrets doing everything he did during the relationship, repeating "never again" as a sort of hysterical coping mechanism of trying to convince himself he doesn't want to get back with her once he realizes he has nothing else in his life. While on the outside, this storyline of the song seems like it could be a fight between the man and his lover, but I feel like there could be an alternate story where the fight is only inside this man's own mind. Maybe he's thinking of confronting his lover and the supposed fight with her is all hypothetical and mental. It may be a stretch, but it's something I feel like could be a possible interpretation outside of the concept. It's like drowning lessons in that aspect. My favorite part of the song is definitely the second chorus that starts at about 2.5 minutes in. The guitars in the part where Gerard's screaming, "And you can't keep my brother," is one of the best moments in the entire album in my opinion. I just love the overall angry atmosphere this track has. A lot of overtly angry songs try way too hard to play to emotions without making all the different elements cohesive with the story or message. MCR is historically great at using anger to an advantage. I mean, even their debut album has tracks that execute this style really well. Honey, This Mirror Isn't Big Enough for the Two of Us is known specifically for its style more so than any other track from Bullets. But another great execution of this style is on the next song on the list, my number one favorite song on this record. Vampires Will Never Hurt You is the first track I remember hearing from this album all the way back in late 2022. At the time, I still thought screaming in music sounded terrible, and I credit this song with contributing in large part to my now love of screamo. This and Demolition Lovers were my introduction to Bullets, and I'm so grateful for that because this album as a whole was really the gateway between my pop-punk phases with bands like Panic and Paramore to heavier bands like Linkin Park and others. I never expected to like screaming in music at all, and Vampires Will Never Hurt You was a song to get me into it. Onto the actual music though, this track is definitely one of the heaviest on the record, behind only This Mirror and Our Lady of Sorrows. Gerard's vocal performance here is still one of, if not his best, of MCR's entire discography, and he would agree with that. I believe he said this was his favorite song of all time. The screaming from both him and Frank, I think, is my favorite on the entire record, and Gerard's ability to manipulate his voice to fit an emotion is elite, as usual. That is most clear at the end when he's repeating, "Can you stake my heart?" It almost sounds like he's crying, which takes some serious talent to execute well. The instrumentals are also my favorite on the album. Ray is an absolute beast as usual, and all the guitars fuse together perfectly to really polish that sinister and desperate sounding atmosphere that the song is going for. The drums by Matt are great too. I think a large part of this track's appeal, at least for me, is it feels almost like a guilty pleasure song. If my parents find out I listen to this, it would probably go very badly, which makes the music all the more special to me. There's something about music not typically accepted by society that makes it seem more special than the average pop song, and MCR in general, for the most part, falls into that category. I have a few different interpretations of the lyrics, but the general consensus is that the story is about a man who's bit by a vampire, so he tells his lover to kill him to save herself. It's a tragic tale of sacrificing yourself for the sake of others, which is very relatable for me at times. Despite the overtly aggressive and angry tone much of the track takes on, the story is heartbreaking and just very sad, to be honest. I suppose the anger could be coming from either the man's lover's initial refusal to stake his heart, as he says, or it may be just him begging to be put out of his misery. Aside from the obvious interpretation involving vampires, I also believe that this song could be about self-sabotage, the vampires being replaced with the man's own self-sabotaging tendencies, which make him want to die in the first place. I feel like a lot of the messages from this album, while fitting into the actual story, can be taken as a battle within one's own mind, like I mentioned before. I'm getting very off track, but anyways, enough yapping. Vampires Will Never Hurt You is one of my favorite pieces of music My Chemical Romance has ever made. It was a big reason for me getting into heavy music in the first place, and I am eternally grateful for it. That was my personal ranking of My Chemical Romance's first album, I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, as I have 6 more MCR videos planned for the next few months. I'll most likely do this entire MCR series in a row like I did with Linkin Park, since this is my favorite band and I want to get these videos out as quickly as I can. If you'd like to, you're welcome to put your own ranking of this album in the comments. I'll be super happy to talk about your opinions too. With that said, thanks for watching and have a nice day, guys.